The American Empire is bankrupt. Chris Hedges, June 14th, 2009. This week marks the end of the dollar's reign as the world's reserve currency. It marks the start of a terrible period of economic and political decline in the United States, and it signals the last gasp of the American Imperium. That is over, and it is not coming back. And what is to come will be very, very painful. President Obama and his criminal class on Wall Street, aided by a corporate media that continues to peddle fatuous gossip and trash talk as news while we endure the greatest economic crisis in our history, may have fooled us, but the rest of the world knows we are bankrupt. And these nations are damned if they're going to continue to prop up an inflated dollar and sustain the massive federal budget deficits, swollen to over $2 trillion, which fund America's imperial expansion in Eurasia and our system of casino capitalism. They have us by the throat, and they are about to start squeezing. There are meetings being held in Russia among top officials of the Six-Nation Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The United States, which asked to attend, was denied admittance. Watch what happens now. The gathering is, in the words of economist Michael Hudson, the most important meeting of the 21st century so far. Unquote. It is the first formal step by our major trading partners to replace the dollar as the world's reserve currency. If they succeed, the dollar will dramatically plummet in value. The cost of imports, including oil, will skyrocket, interest rates will climb, and jobs will hemorrhage at a rate that will make the last few months look like boom times. State and federal services will be reduced or shut down for lack of funds. The United States will begin to resemble the Weimar Republic or Zimbabwe. This means the end of the dollar, Hudson told me. It means China, Russia, India, Pakistan, Iran, and others are forming an official financial and military area to get America out of Eurasia and elsewhere. The balance of payments deficit is mainly military in nature. Half of America's discretionary spending is military. The deficit ends up in the hands of foreign banks, central banks. They don't have any choice but to recycle the money to buy U.S. government debt. Asian countries have been financing thus their own military encirclement. They have been forced to accept dollars that they know have no chance of being repaid. They are paying for America's military aggression against them, and they want to get out. China, as Hudson points out, has already struck bilateral deals with Brazil and Malaysia to denominate their trade in China's yuan rather than the dollar, pound, or euro. Russia promises to begin trading in the ruble and local currencies. The governor of China's central bank has openly called for the abandonment of the dollar as reserve currency. China is frantically spending its dollar reserves to buy factories and property around the globe so it can unload its U.S. currencies. It realizes these dollars are going to be worthless pretty quickly. The architects of this new global exchange realize that if they break the dollar, they also break America's military domination. Our military spending cannot be sustained without this cycle of heavy borrowing. The official U.S. defense budget for fiscal year 2008 is $623 billion before we add on things like nuclear research or the off-the-books spending for the war in Iraq. The next closest national military budget is China's, at only $65 billion per year, according to the CIA. There are three categories of the balance of payments deficits. 1. America imports more than it exports. This is trade. 2. Wall Street and American corporations buy up foreign companies. This is capital movement. The third and most important balance of payment deficit for the past 50 years has been Pentagon spending abroad. It is primarily military spending that has been responsible for this balance of payments deficit for the last 5 decades. Some have called this military socialism. To fund our permanent war economy, we have been flooding the world with U.S. dollars. The foreign recipients turn the dollars over to their central banks for local currency. The central banks then have a problem. If a central bank does not spend the money in the United States, then the exchange rate against the dollar goes up. This will penalize their exporters. This has allowed America to print money without restraint to buy imports, and foreign companies fund our military expansion and ensure that foreign nations like China continue to buy our treasury bonds. This cycle appears now to be over. Once the dollar cannot flood central banks and no one buys our treasury bonds, our empire collapses. The profligate spending on our military, some $1 trillion per year when everything is counted, will be unsustainable. We will have to finance our own military spending, Hudson warned, and the only way to do this will be to sharply cut back wage rates. The class war is back in business. Wall Street understands this. This is why it had Bush and Obama give it $10 trillion in a huge ripoff so it can have enough money to survive. The desperate effect to borrow our way out of financial collapse has promoted a level of state intervention unseen since World War II. It has also led us into uncharted territory. We have in effect had to declare war to get us out of the hole created by our economic system, Lancaster writes. There is no model or precedent for this, and no way to argue that it's all right, really, because under such and such a model of capitalism. There is no such model. It isn't supposed to work like this, and there is no roadmap for what has happened. The cost of daily living, from buying food to getting medical care, will become difficult for all but a few as the dollar plunges. States and cities will see their pension funds drained and finally shut down. The government will be forced to sell off infrastructure, including roads and transportation, to private corporations. Think Enron from China. We will be increasingly charged by private utilities, foreign ones, for what was once regulated and subsidized. Commercial and private real estate will be worth less than half of its current value. The negative equity that already plagues 25% of the American homes market will expand to include nearly all property owners. It will be difficult to borrow and impossible to sell real estate unless we accept massive losses. There will be block after block of empty stores and boarded-up homes. Foreclosures will be epidemic. There will be long lines at soup kitchens and many, many homeless. Our corporate-controlled media, already banal and trivial, will work overtime to anesthetize us with useless gossip, fear, and tawdry junk politics. America will be composed of a large dispossessed underclass and a tiny empowered oligarchy that will run a ruthless and brutal system of neo-feudalism from secure compounds with the assistance of their socialized military. Those who resist will be silenced, many by force. We will be paying a terrible price, and we will be paying this price soon for the gross malfeasance of our power elite.